Hello,
Hi.
hello, Ashley. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us on this Sunday of the Mixed Asian Media Film Festival. I know you're all excited to dive into a great Q&A with Ashley and her adventures in the voiceover world. My name is Brian Kim. I am an actor, director, right, produce all the hats, things that we do in this business. I'm joining you from Los Angeles, California, on unceded land that belong to the Chumash people. I am a Korean American adoptee, black hair that is currently pulled back with a man bun because I am on West Coast living now. And I've got tan skin and I'm streaming live from my living room, which is basically a white room with some furniture. So, and I will let Ashley introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Ashley Nguyen DeWitt. I am an animation casting and voice director as well as a musician. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am joining you all also from Los Angeles, California, on the unceded homeland of the Chumash and Tongva people. I am a Black presenting mixed race woman with dark afro hair on top of my head. I have glasses. I have almond eyes, I have brown skin, and I'm streaming in front of my staircase that has framed photos behind me. And there's a skateboard on the wall.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great setup. Cool, cool. Well, we've got, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of information and a lot of questions coming from the audience. So I will jump right into this so we don't waste any time. Um, Ashley, if you could tell us a little bit about your beginning and, maybe where you grew up, where you went to school, and just how you got, from A to a little bit of here.
Okay. Well, I grew up in the Bay Area. So I am from Northern California. Um, I lived in this city called San Ramon. That's where I grew up, and I was a theater kid and a
Yeah.
choir kid in high school, and that's where my love for like entertaining and entertainment came. So from high school, I went to Cal State Northridge for college. I moved out when I was like 17. Yeah, I was very young. And then I
Dang.
moved to LA and I never went back.
Yeah.
Um, but I was a theater major for 4 years, and I did my studies were uh, musical theater, um, makeup, and I also did some Pan African studies as well.
Amazing. Amazing.
Um, and so yeah, I was a theater major, and the way that I got into voiceover was there was a woman who was brought on by my improv teacher to come in and do a master class on voice acting, and just kind of tell us about the world, because I didn't really know anything about that world. It wasn't even like in my periphery of that being an option
Yeah.
for acting or anything. And she came in and she talked, and she did a master class. And when she was done, I offered to help her to her car, and I asked her if she wanted an intern because I did not want to go home for the summer.
Yeah.
So I asked if she needed someone to help work in the office, and she said yeah. And I contacted her, and that's where I started.
Awesome.
Yeah. So
And what do you think was what part of that internship was the like turning point that kind of made you appreciate voiceover and like heading in that direction versus musical theater?
well, what's so funny is, so when I graduated college, they offered me like a paid position because my internship was not paid. And so when I graduated, they offered me a paid position, and I was like, yeah, I'll work part time. And I was also offered to be a company member of the Independent Shakespeare Company that did Shakespeare in Griffith Park, and I did a lot
Cool.
of like acting and music for them. And so I was kind of on these two like parallel different paths, like Shakespearean theater acting was my main gig, and
Yeah.
like voice casting was my side gig. Um, and so, because money, that's where you make it. And so I decided to kind of balance the both of them. And for the voice casting company, I worked in their office, and then they
Mm,
also asked me to engineer for their classes. So they have like a voiceover school. So I would go in and I would engineer the classes, and that's when I would like see the actors learning how to do voiceover and kind of get like what their school spiel was and how they approached voice acting and just kind
mhm.
of being in there. And that's when I was like, oh, this is fun. And it's also like something where it's like, it doesn't matter what you look
Yeah.
like you can roll in looking busted and they'll still pay you. Just kidding. No, don't do that. But you know what I mean? Like it's,
Yep.
and I realized that it was really fun. And I've always loved animation. I love video games. I love anime. And, I just really started getting more into that world.
Mhm.
Well, also like theater acting for whatever.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And
yeah.
not to jump too far into the future, but just so
Mhm.
that for anybody in the audience who doesn't know, you've had a wonderful career thus far, and like,
Yeah.
can you talk about some of the titles that you've done in the past, and maybe anything upcoming that you're allowed to talk about?
Yeah, yeah. So just kind of jumping through my career a little bit, from that casting company, I went to a smaller boutique company, and that's kind of where I got directing experience. I was a booth director, and I did some initial cast. I did like the youth casting, like the lead casting for this
Mm,
um, program called Grandma's Cats Are Trying to Kill Her. Which is a
very
fun
kid
title.
appropriate.
Yeah, very. It was really cute, and I did the initial casting for that, and the audition directing for that, and so that was
Mm,
like my first. I would say that's my first title,
good.
of like working as like a casting assistant.
Mhm.
And then from there, I moved on to DreamWorks, and I worked in their casting and talent relations department. And I worked on a lot of shows there. More of a logistical liaison, not as creative, but it's still like in the world. I was meeting like all of the voice directors, the studios, the
Yeah.
agents. I was working directly with production, and I worked on Harvey Street Kids. I worked on Trolls, The Beat Goes On. I worked on The Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle, which I love. I
Who
worked
doesn't?
on Kipo. I
Mhm.
worked on Kung Fu Panda and The Paws of Destiny, I believe that's called.
Wow.
I worked on a lot of shows there, and I'm sure I'm missing. There are some that I'm missing.
So many more. Yeah.
Spirit Riding
Mm.
Free. That was actually the first show that I took on when I was at DreamWorks. Um, and so I did that, and now as a casting and voice director, I'm working on the show called Ada Twist Scientist that I'm really excited about. It's coming out in like 9 days on September
Ooh.
28th. It'll be on Netflix. It's a preschool show. It is co-produced by Chris Nee, who did Doc McStuffins and
Mhm.
Vampirina, and the Obama's company, Higher Ground, and Netflix.
Awesome.
So that's
Those are
coming
some good
out.
groups together. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool, and I'm really lucky because that's my first official show
Yeah.
series where I've been in the voice directing chair and the casting directing chair. So yeah, that's my first big like series that's coming out. It's very very soon.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about it. It's about a little African American girl who is obsessed, super into science, and how she like solves her everyday problems with science. And she has like her
Mm,
two friends, and they go through like the scientific method, and it's just like a lot
that's
of
awesome.
fun, really nice stuff. And there's actually a couple of episodes on YouTube, like on Netflix Junior right now. If anyone
Oh,
wants to check
cool.
it out, if you have kids, or if you don't have
Check it
kids,
out.
you understand.
Watch it. Adults probably enjoy it just as much.
Yeah.
Those are the best, kids programming where it's just like layered in there with references for everybody.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It's
that's
really
cool.
cool. Yeah, yeah. So.
And having a Black lead character is very awesome. And we don't have, especially within science, like we
Mhm.
don't see that kind of representation pretty much
Yeah.
anywhere. So, how, as a mixed person, have you felt? How have you seen the business change since you began? Early on, and now where you are now with everything that we've gone through.
Yeah. So I'd say my career from interning to now, it's been about a decade. It's been 10 years. Um, so like a cool decade. And as like a person of color in this space and just like as a casting person, like I've
Mhm,
definitely seen the push towards um, authentic casting
mhm.
and authenticity. Like voiceover used to be just about if you can do the voice, you can do the character,
Yep.
and that gets sticky in certain
Yeah.
situations that we've seen like in the past couple years. Like the guy who played Cleveland on Family Guy,
Mhm,
who's a white man portraying a black man. Uh, and he stepped down from that show. And then Jenny Slate playing the mixed race, Black
mhm.
and Jewish girl, on Big Mouth. And I believe that Jenny is Jewish. I don't,
I,
I, I
no
don't,
quoting,
I'm
but I
not quite
believe.
sure.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So like, what's the takeaway? Because it's the character design wise is black presenting.
yes.
So that was an issue with her, and she stepped down as well to open it to a woman of color to play that role, which was great. Um, but I would say that the push towards authenticity in casting and hiring actors that identify with the character more
Mhm,
specifically has been
mhm,
a trend, you know.
mhm.
Um,
Have you found that it's difficult to fill roles authentically, or do you see that the talent is out there?
I know that the talent is out there. It's whether or not they're accessible.
Sure.
And it is hard, it's a
Mhm,
lot of legwork, it's a lot of research, it's a lot of due diligence um, on the casting and productions part of finding specific roles,
right.
which is you know it's a lot of work,
Yeah.
but and sometimes it yields nothing,
Nothing.
sometimes
Right.
you but you try to the best of your ability and the best within your legal parameters of what you can ask for, and like and what you can ask and what you can look for, and really it's just a lot of like googling. It's a
Yeah.
lot of looking through social media. Something that's really really helped is the people of the global majority VO list, the PGM VO
Edward
list.
Hong.
Yeah, Edward Hong. Yeah, that
Yes.
that has definitely helped
Yeah.
uh, with casting specifically and authentically,
Mhm.
and just to know
The
like
network,
where the
exactly.
network, and finding new people and finding new actors and trying to give um, people a chance
Yeah.
who haven't or who you would not normally have checked out. But so yes, it's difficult, but there are resources that are out there that are making it less difficult,
Yeah.
you know.
Um, I want to talk a little bit about anybody who wants to get started in business,
Yeah.
whether as an actor or as a creative. Like
Hmm.
you started through an internship, but then I think like even DreamWorks, you just applied and went for it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was pretty lucky, and maybe it's future Ashley looking out for past Ashley, that I did my internship and I stuck around the world because
Hmm.
I was like, my main goal coming out of college was like, I want to be a stage actor.
Hmm.
That was my main goal. But I was also like, I'm not getting money to be a stage actor. And I started my internship in this, and maybe this is a world that I can keep in because I have now I'm like growing the knowledge of and keeping that around. And so I had the like the years kind of went on and it was still on my resume after all those years. And by the time that I was at DreamWorks, I had about 5 years of experience.
Wow.
Um, so like 4 or 5 years of experience. And uh, like that helps. um, so I think for anyone who's trying to get started in casting is like internships the way to go. Like trying to get in with either boutique casting or a big um, a studio that can help you if you're trying to get into animation casting. If you want to be a voice actor, there are a lot of different resources that are available. D. Bradley Baker, who's a wonderful voice actor, he has a website called I want to be a voice actor.com.
Yeah, yes.
And it's a very comprehensive place to start. Like he really lays it out of like what where you can start if you're starting from nothing.
Hmm.
I would also say take classes.
Yeah.
Classes, like really the first thing you got to do is know how to act on microphone, which is different than
Hmm.
acting on camera, right?
Totally.
And so taking classes, looking for a VO school or looking for a like a established voice actor, because a lot of them do coaching in classes, and looking for a place to start there. Like there are definitely some veteran teachers,
Yeah.
veteran like actors who are teaching, and take classes and take different classes,
Yeah.
and don't just take one class, like take multiple classes. Like you don't. I have a friend who's also in like casting and um, in voice acting, and she said, and I'm paraphrasing this quote, like you don't take one ballet class and then dance Swan Lake, like you have to take multiple ballet classes and
Yeah.
like really hone your technique before you're able to go out there and perform.
Hmm.
So I would definitely say if it's something that you want to invest in, go for it, invest in it. And also there are schools that do, like for people who are in it or who have started doing that and have already gone through the process of like starting to take classes and starting to
Yeah.
hone in on things and like make their demos and all of that. There are some schools that do master classes with casting directors and agents. And I feel like that's a great place to get seen.
Get seen.
Um, is
Because it is about
to
the relationship.
Yeah, it really is about building the relationship, and putting yourself out there and putting yourself in front of a person,
Hmm.
so that they have like your name, and then they've seen your act and they've seen how you can be redirected, and maybe they'll call you
Yeah.
eventually. And there are also like some casting places that do classes as well, so that's also
Mm.
like a nice marriage of that.
Hmm.
Um, so long story short, take classes,
Take classes.
build
Yeah.
relationships.
Yeah. Oh, I think I think you addressed it earlier too. A lot of people have the impression that the voiceover is just about making a voice. And
Mhm.
it often, can help to be able to do that. But I know with the directors I've worked with and the projects I'm working on, it's much more geared towards, can you act? Can
Yeah,
you like tell a story? And
yeah,
I've been in several sessions where a director's like, oh, thank God you can act. And I mean, so I
yeah.
think a lot of people who maybe started as stage actors, that voiceover is a pivot that they could open up their world to,
Definitely.
because they have a lot of the tools already there.
Yeah, I would say that like voice acting is definitely a theatrical type of acting, not as broad as
Hmm.
being on stage, but still like having that sort of energy like you are on stage, while still keeping it, the sweet spot is still keeping it like natural
Yeah.
conversational
Yeah.
as anybody will be directed, constantly finding levels. These are all buzzwords that if you're ever in a session, you'll probably hear them at some point. But really it's like having that energy, acting wise. Like it's great if you have like a nice voice or it's interesting. And that's like a small part of it. But as you said, acting, like being able to deliver information in a natural conversational way.
Mhm.
Being able to sound like if you're in a vacuum, because we're all like at home at this point or
Right.
not recording with other people, like are you able to deliver information and lines as if you were talking with someone, as if you have a
Mhm.
rapport with someone? It's a character who could be like your parent or your best friend, or the bunny rabbit who's gonna like shepherd you to greatness on your magical mystical adventure. Yeah.
Yeah, we got to believe it's there.
We have to believe it's there, and we have to believe that like you actually do have that that relationship.
Mhm.
Um and that's where the acting comes
Mhm.
in.
Yeah. I
So
think you also brought talked a little bit about that we're all acting from home right now, and I think
mhm,
that's. Do you think that's something that's going to stay? I know studios have come back. I've been back in the studio, but
mhm.
I think having to be able to use talent from all over has had to be a beneficial thing.
Definitely. Yeah. The opening of the market, like the opening of being able to record people from generally anywhere if they have like
Hmm.
a broadcast quality situation
Hmm.
or a situation that has been vetted by production or studios to be able to be put to air.
Right.
Like I think that it's definitely been I think it's been beneficial because then it broadens my purview of actors that I'm not
Hmm.
seeing, because sometimes if I put out an audition I'll get the same 8 actors for the
Right.
same roles, and like those are great. And at a certain point, I know what they could do because
Yep.
I've heard their auditions multiple times. But now that it's broader and like the outreach is a bit greater, like it's nice to see some new blood in there, and
Mm.
like to give people chances when you can. Um, and I think that I mean with the whole COVID of it
Mm.
all,
That word.
that triggered a little. We don't know where it's gonna be. Like,
Hmm.
I have no idea, like, if this is gonna be a viable. I mean, it has been viable in the past year. Like, Ada Twist, completely produced in quarantine.
Hmm.
Like, so it's it's crazy. Just to kind of try to think to the future of like we don't know when this is going to end. We don't know if things are
Yeah.
going to get worse or better. People are starting to build like really top-notch, wonderful home studios, and like technically they could do it from home. It depends on the production. Some productions
Right.
prefer people going into the studio because they can control the technical aspect of it, and if they feel comfortable. And SAG has their rules,
Hmm.
their very specific COVID rules that like it really depends. And then some productions are just like, yeah, if it's been vetted and it's broadcast quality, you could definitely do it from home. So it really depends on their whoever's particular want for that.
Yeah.
So I think that that's a whole long way to say that it's up in the air. But I do think it's a viable. I mean, it's a viable option.
Yeah.
Just because we've been doing it.
Yeah, and I think that's, for anyone considering it, the investment could definitely be a long-term option because of the
Mhm.
mobility of it. Um, for kind of staying with the getting started, where do you recommend people look for auditions or, trying to get other than classes? I know
Yeah.
Twitter's used a lot, Facebook groups are used, Instagram.
Yeah.
Um,
Twitter, Instagram, Facebook groups. I mean, the first place to start is an agent, but I mean, that's the
Yeah.
whole other thing.
Right.
Another good place is Actors Access, Breakdown Services.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good place where people kind of just like shoot to all markets.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are websites. I've never used like Voices 123 and that sort of thing. I've never really
Those are a
associated with
different thing too.
those places, and those are a different thing.
Yeah.
But I assume, but I don't want to assume that that's like a place to get work. But I would definitely say like Facebook groups, and and Instagram. Social media has been used a lot
Yeah.
lately. But Actors Access and Breakdown Services is a great place to like to start
Yeah.
looking for auditions on all types of auditions, because I think they do voiceover, they do on camera and theater and all of that.
Audiobook, all exactly. Yeah,
Audiobooks,
you
yeah.
whatever you're just trying to find an audition, they got you covered.
Yeah, so I feel like that's the biggest. If you aren't represented in any sort of way, that's like a really great place to start and just start kind of shooting your shot at
Cool.
whatever you character you identify with.
Yeah. Maybe for the people who are listening who maybe are already in the business somewhat,
Mhm.
do you have any advice as far as like from your perspective as a casting director, big no's and don'ts or things that you don't like when auditions come in or how people contact you or just kind of those things to avoid
Yeah.
to not set yourself up for failure.
I would say like if you have an audition, don't cold contact a casting director.
Mm.
I'm I mean that's my personal view
Mm-hmm.
on it. Like if
Hey.
there's not a pre-existing relationship, like it makes me feel a little uncomfortable. And I'm someone who like I would want to give time to people, but it would be preferred if like if you want to be pitched to me, go through your agent.
Mm-hmm.
Or take a class of mine. If
Mm.
I'm doing a class, like I don't
Do you have
hold
any coming up? Or
I don't have any classes coming up right now, but sometimes I do work with Ace Studios and the Voice Actors Network.
cool.
Sometimes I do master classes through them. I actually just finished last week
Oh,
a
nice.
stint over there. And like I don't do any personal things, just kind of through schools. Um, I would say when you're sending your audition, make it seem like you nailed it on the first take. Like
Mm-hmm.
I can hear if you've edited. Um, I'm not a huge fan of stumbles. So like if you have a take, edit it to what you want it to sound like and then just do it clean. And that
Mm-hmm.
be the one that you submit just
Okay.
because it takes me out of it. Um, I I would say really know yourself and what you can do.
Mm-hmm.
Like if a character is really out of your range, then I can tell.
Yeah.
You know, and like you want to be able to market yourself in what is actually appropriate. And I mean, sometimes you don't know. You don't know if you can't do this character or not. But if it feels uncomfortable to you, don't submit it. Like,
Yeah.
because I remember really good auditions, but I also remember really bad ones.
Mm.
Um, and like I do want to give as everyone like a chance as much as I can, but like there, as a casting director, I have to. It's up to my discretion to like remember, that sort of thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And then I would say, um, when you are, don't hold back.
Mm.
Um, there are, if you're auditioning for a comedic show,
Mm-hmm.
like give the take, like give give the first like reads, like normal natural take, but give me a second take where like you push for the comedy, where you're finding the jokes, where you're making it natural, whatever feels comfortable to you. Like I love
Yeah.
to hear things that surprise me.
Mhm.
I love to hear things that surprise me but are also like authentic and
Mhm.
conversational. Like you can throw some ad libs in there, don't ad lib over a plot, but like me personally, I'm looking for someone who can give me multiple different takes and surprise me and make me laugh or make me sad, or who can like, I'm looking for someone who I know understands what they're reading and what their character is.
Yep.
So, if you get copy, read everything on the page. Like read everything in the character description, read everything if you're so lucky to get dialogue. Read the other people's dialogue and know what you're reacting against. Read the
Yeah.
stage direction. Like really read those things because I can tell when you don't because you're not following the
Right.
directions.
Right.
And that's another thing is like if I can tell that you're not following directions, it makes me weary as to whether or not you'd be able to follow directions in a
Mhm.
session.
Mhm.
Uh,
That's great advice.
yeah, I could ramble for so long
Well,
about.
again, it's those pitfalls because I started with a voiceover coach when I first began, and that was similar advice. There are a lot of people out there who are willing to get first impressions of people, but sometimes that's all we get is that one chance, and you want to lead with your best foot
Yeah,
and make sure that it's because as open as the market is, it's also a highly competitive market, and it is
yeah.
something that we the you need to if once you get to a certain level, you are up against very very talented individuals who also want this job.
Exactly.
So
Yeah, and
yeah.
I'll get upwards of hundreds of auditions for a single role.
Wow.
And I'm someone who tries their best to listen to all of them and to all of it.
Wow, good for
Um,
you.
I
That's
try. I mean, I try my best
hey.
because the ear fatigue is wrong, and you also have deadlines. But I try to really just to see if there's something different in there, if there's just like a special nugget or just like a special way that they say something that I didn't think about, and that's why I would put someone up.
Hmm.
As opposed to someone who would just give me like the natural, normal, what's expected take. Like I love to give options just to see because I mean we don't know what we want until we hear it.
Yeah. And I think you talked about how you present options to people because
Mhm.
ultimately you aren't necessarily the final say on casting.
Oh no.
um, and how has that changed with more authenticity? Do you find that the higher ups are wanting to know this type of information and listen to what you're presenting, or is there still some hesitance in some studios, or
I
the
can't really.
renaissance happening?
Yeah, I can't really speak to what the studios want in that sort of respect because
Hmm.
that's kind of
Above your pay grade.
well, I mean, it just kind of it's up to their discretion, you know.
Sure.
But when I send in my casting, if it's
Mm.
like a specific role, I have done my due diligence the damnedest that I, could,
Yep.
I've done all the research, I've done all the legwork on trying to find characters that are authentic. If there's a specific note about someone, I'll just say it. Like when I'm submitting, like, by the way, this is something about someone.
Mm.
I include headshots.
Hmm.
Sometimes I ask for headshots and resumes just so that they can see who is listening, so that they can make their own interpretation.
Mm.
But if I'm searching for like a specific, like an ethnically specific character, someone who's culturally specific, um, I have done as much legwork as possible um, in order to present that so that uh, and I just present it,
Yeah.
and then they choose an actor based off of that. And me, like, I'm scouring Actors Access, I'm scouring theater companies in Jersey. I'm like,
Hmm.
I'm I'm looking for acting schools for children in like different places, or like music schools for children, or like neurodivergent academies, or like whoever,
Mm.
like
Hmm.
I'm doing as much of that like work as I possibly can, and it's part of my job.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I mean, and that's me as a casting director. I don't know what other people
Right.
do, but when I'm presenting, that's how I can best convey authenticity through my casting,
Hmm.
for those people. And sometimes I don't get a lot. Sometimes I get like 4 kids or 4
Mm.
adults that are in that, and I'll be like, this is what I got.
Yeah.
Let me
Yeah.
know if you'd like to discuss. you know but it's it's such an ever-changing, and I'd say like fluid situation when it
Right.
comes to that. And
We're
I
learning
feel
things
like
every day
we're
about,
learning things every day, and we're all trying to
yeah.
find a middle ground, and like what's appropriate, and
Hmm.
what we are able to do creatively and like legally, and it it's constantly changing.
Yeah. Yeah. And have you found, as a mixed Asian, uh, your opportunities when you were an actor,
Mhm.
were you pursuing Asian projects, Black projects, both? Were you finding a community in either, or how do you?
Uh,
Yeah.
um, so when I was an actor, um, what's so funny? I mostly did Shakespearean theater, or I was in August Wilson plays. I feel like those are like my main things. I did a Fringe Festival show where I played the devil.
Okay.
But like it, when I was an actor, because it was such a visual medium for
Hmm.
me, and I present African American, I present Black, like those were
Hmm.
the roles that I was given. And like in that sort of sense, like that community was auditioning me, and I was,
Yeah.
doing that. And I really didn't audition for any Asian like theater companies, or that, because I didn't feel like they would take me,
Hmm.
because of the way that I presented. Like I feel like I wouldn't be cast in like and any, like I wouldn't be cast in Viet Cong, like I wouldn't be cast
Hmm.
in Miss Saigon, uh
Yeah, and that, I
which is
mean,
a
and yet
whole
you share, the bloodline, what the
like the
story is
specific
based on.
the specific yeah, bloodline. And like, and it's so interesting too, because as I've become a casting director, and like everything that's happened over the past year in both of my cultures, with Black Lives
Mm-hmm.
Matter and Stop Asian Hate, like I'm on both, in both of those sorts of things. And like my dad is what is a retired police officer, law enforcement officer, which is the whole other
Wow.
thing to unpack.
Sure.
Um, like I, as a casting director, and as I was trying to find community, and like trying to figure out like how I can get my emotions out and stuff, the Southeast Asian and Vietnamese community in entertainment has been very supportive of me. Um, and that's something I never would have expected. Just from growing up.
Sure.
Um, and like I have been very, very supported by the Asian community, in this past year, and being been uplifted,
Mm.
by certain things. Like I played a music festival called the Joy Ruckus Club last month, which is like the largest digital Asian music festival. So it had like Asian people of the Asian diaspora from all over the globe
Wow.
on different stages. And I was asked by VQ Media, run by Johnny Nguyen, and he asked me to come and perform on the Vietnamese stage, as someone of the Vietnamese diaspora. And I was like, heck yes, you know.
Yeah.
And I've just been very uplifted by that community, to as a performer and as like a person in entertainment.
Hmm.
And I'm super thankful for that, because I've been trying to find community all my life. So, and like, where do I fit in?
Yeah. It's
um,
and I think that's part of the evolution of the whole process that we're going through right now. And
yeah.
do you find that mixed people are all around in voiceover, or like I guess the similar like box that you found yourself in theater because of the way you presented, do those
Mm.
same boxes or limitations exist in voiceover, or is it maybe easier to represent
It's,
both sides of your culture?
I think that that's an evolving sort of
Mm,
thing as well. Because there are mixed characters out there, right?
hmm.
There are characters that are specifically mixed.
The Jenny Slate one you're
The Jenny Slate one that we were saying, there are things that are coming out, that will involve like characters who are mixed, and hopefully those have mixed actors in it, you
mm,
know. But I feel like voiceover is starting to expand and being more specific, because
mhm.
opposed to being like, just this is an Asian character, this is a Latinx character, you know, like, there are being more culturally specific because it is part of the plot, or it's part of something important about that character. And as like a mixed person, it it's interesting. And I feel like, if you're a mixed actor, audition for a character that you authentically identify with,
I agree with
you
that.
know.
I support that
um
statement.
you know, like, who am I to say whether or not you authentically identify with being black or Asian, or an Asian character
Hmm.
or a black character or a white character,
Hmm.
or what, like, it that yeah, that's that's what I think, because it's,
Yeah.
again, it's fluid and it's ever changing, and it's like,
Yep.
are we going to limit, or are we going to expand? And it's still constantly evolving.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Um, we're coming down to the last parts of this Q&A.
Oh, wow.
I know time has flown by.
How?
I feel like, and again, there's so many things to unpack about the industry and just,
Mhm.
all within the social changes that are happening, but also just the business itself and what
Yeah.
it is to be a working creative director, producer, casting coordinator. I mean, there's so many
Yeah.
positions within that world. And do you have any last like tidbits of advice or just any parting thoughts that you want to make sure people
I
hear
mean,
that have joined us?
well, I mean, as a woman of color in this position that has been predominantly white,
Hmm.
um, very, very much predominantly white, I would say that it starts from the top. And it really starts, like, the change and really implementing like diversity, like, creatively, starts from the from putting like people of the global majority in above the line positions,
Yep.
like casting or producing, or any of that. And I feel like that is really where it needs to happen, is to diversify that, in order for it to start making more and significant changes, um, as it falls down. Um, and so I'm lucky that, and I'm like, and I've worked really hard, and I'm really lucky that I've had so many people championing me to be in this position. Like, my mentor, got a shout out Christy Reed, got a shout out
Yes.
Chris Nee, and Laughing Wild and her company, for really, and Rebecca Sugar, because I worked on the Steven Universe anti-racism PSAs. Like, I want to really shout out like those people who have really wanted to champion me as a woman of color in this position and really help me get to where I am now.
Yeah.
A decade later.
A decade later, with decades to come, you are, you know, just arise and like the fight is in you. And I feel better within the industry knowing there are people out there in positions of power making real change like you. So, you know, to all of us within the community, like the people out there, because, you know, it sometimes activism, you just got to do the work, and
Yeah.
you're doing the work. So thank you
Thank
very,
you.
very much. I think we're coming up to the end. So
Oh,
um, thank you all for joining us. My name is Brian Kim, and you can find me on the social medias, Asian with a camera on Instagram with a bunch of underscores in between. I thought it was so witty back in the day when that first came out. I was like, I'm going to take this stereotype and flip it on its head. And no one wants to type out that many words. So I apologize, but you can find me there and, check out all weird stuff. But Ashley, thank you so much for joining us. Do you have any
yeah.
any handles they can follow
Yeah,
you on?
you can find me at Ashley Nguyen DeWitt, Ashley NGU DeWitt, on Twitter and Instagram. I have a website, ashleywindewitt.com, if you just want to see things. And yeah, that's pretty much where you can find me. Watch Ada Twist on Netflix,
Ada Twist,
September
yes.
28th. And yeah, that's that.
Amazing. Amazing, amazing. Oh, I will plug, last thing I will plug then is Squid Game was a Korean show on Netflix that just got dubbed and dropped on the 17th. And if you like dystopian murder, weird game show thingies that only the Koreans can come up with, give that a watch. And if you listen to the English dub, you'll hear there's a lot of fun people in it, and maybe me. But thank you for joining us, and have a great rest of the festival. And you have a great rest of your Sunday in sunny California. Bye.